the concept of miracles. And Dan, I'll invite you to come back on for a little bit of discussion and questions here. You mentioned earlier that when you were younger, you were always searching for natural explanations to the things that happened in the Bible. But you said how eventually you came to this realization that miracles are exactly that. They're miracles. God is all powerful. And so there doesn't always have to be a natural explanation to the supernatural that God has done. But I've got to ask you, though, what do you say to people who say that your faith is blind, that you're believing in a God, and a God who does all these things when there's seemingly no real or physical proof that you can show to back up that belief?
Yeah, it's a totally fair challenge. And you're right, that idea is definitely out there. Some people describe believers of the Bible as having blind faith. You may have heard of the God of the gaps. So skeptics use that phrase and they accuse believers of invoking God to explain whatever science hasn't figured out. So science has this worked out, but this isn't. So they just say, "Oh, God." And science thinks, well, we'll just fill in all those gaps, and there's less and less room for God. But the truth is, as believers, we don't believe without evidence. And I want to take you to a Bible example. I think we should stick to the Bible when we're doing these discussions. So there's a great example in the Bible of a man of faith, and his name was Abraham. And you may remember Abraham. He's described as the father of the faithful because he showed such great faith. And Abraham was asked to do something that was rather ridiculous, it seems, to offer his son Isaac as a sacrifice. And what was difficult about that is God said, you know what, your son Isaac is going to be the one through whom you become a great nation, a huge number of people. And if he was to kill his son, well, then that would make that promise of no effect. And yet the Bible tells us that Abraham believed that God could raise him from the dead. And you think, well, how did he believe that God could raise his son from the dead? Well, God had kept his word years before. God had promised Abraham a son, and Abraham had a son when he was 100 years old, and his wife was 90. You know, God had promised that for years, and it came true. God had asked him to leave his homeland and come to Canaan, and he would be looked after, and that happened. And so Romans 4, where it's talking about Abraham, it says that he didn't stagger at the promise of God. Like, he didn't stagger that God could raise his son from the dead. And it says because he was fully persuaded that God, what he had promised, he was able to perform. So it wasn't a blind faith that Abraham had. It was based on things that had happened in his life. And that's why we believe too. And I can't tell you tonight, but in the next 20 weeks, we're going to look at the evidence of why we trust the Bible to be like the Word of God.
Okay, what if I were to say that by bringing up the example of Abraham, it seems like you're using the Bible to prove why you believe in the Bible? That almost seems like circular reasoning, does it not?
Yeah, but let me turn it back and make it a science kind of thing. So I'm going to put forward a hypothesis that the Bible is reliable and that we can trust what it says. So yes, I'm invoking the Bible, but what we're hoping to do is to test that hypothesis with evidence. And when you test it, there's a lot of data to support it. And for me, one of the strongest lines of evidence is Bible prophecy. We're witnessing events today that were written down thousands of years ago. I'll talk about the existence of the nation of Israel after centuries of exile. It's one of the clearest examples. I think we might have a pretty knowledgeable audience in this webinar. I wonder if we could put the question to them, what makes them confident that the Bible is authoritative?
Okay, yeah, let's do that. So for everyone joining, we're asking you, what makes you confident that the Bible is truly from God? So you can enter your responses into the chat. We'll give you a few minutes and we'll get to those in a moment. So again, the question is, what makes you confident that the Bible is truly from God? Now, Dan, when you're talking about prophecy, what do you think about everything that's going on in the world right now?
So are you thinking like the release of the hostages and all the talk of peace that's going on in Israel? Yeah. I think that's pretty remarkable. I wish I could explain it right now that that's what Bible students have been looking for, is a cry of peace in the Middle East, from what they've read in the Bible. But I think when I'm talking about a witness of something that I could present at a webinar like this, I'm thinking about the bigger picture, that we've got this nation who's survived as a distinct nation for nearly 2,000 years. That went back to their homeland in 1948, that captured Jerusalem like Jesus had said they would do in 1967, that they continue to exist despite all the hatred and pressure upon them. These really aren't accidents of history. They're predicted in detail by the prophets of the Bible. And that's going to come up in one of our sessions. We're going to look at actually two things about Israel. We're going to look at their existence and how the Bible predicted that they would come back into the land. And we're also going to look at how the Bible predicted that there would be a rise in anti-Semitism. So those are some of the things that I think then start to prove the hypothesis that we're presenting to people tonight.
Yeah, and looking at a couple of the participant answers, some of the reasons people believe, or it makes them confident that the Bible is truly from God. We got a couple people, Ashley, Ed, and Denise, both talking about archaeology, how you can see things that have been dug up that match exactly with the Bible accounts. Yeah, those are great reasons.
Yeah, we got a session on that coming up too, Sam, on archaeology. That'll be a good one.
Awesome. Yeah, Gary as well mentions archaeology, so that's a big one. I guess sharing personally, one of the reasons that makes me confident the Bible is truly from God is you have this book that was written by, I think, close to 40-something authors over thousands of years. And when you look at it, it's completely consistent throughout. It talks about the same message. It talks about God's plan in the same way. And even the small things that people might bring up, I think there's 2 or 3 maybe people will bring up that are contradictions. A quick look into the Bible proves that actually the Bible is completely consistent throughout, and I think that's just amazing. All right, feel free to keep... Oh, Miriam brings up in 2 Timothy 3 how in our age there will be a moral decline, and I think, yeah, we're definitely seeing that in the world today. Morals going out the window and people really living just however they want to.
Yeah, there's another one there. Another one there about answering all the questions about our origin, our minds, and our behavior. It gives an understanding of, what we're struggling with every day in our lives and why.
Absolutely.
Good answers. Yeah, lots of good answers there.
Okay, before we wrap up, I just want to circle back, Dan, to where we started with miracles. I think it's great that we can talk about all this evidence for the Bible's authority, but why do you think that God filled the Bible with so many miracles, especially when miracles don't seem to happen today? What was the purpose of miracles back then, and why do we read about them so frequently in the Bible?
Yeah, and especially when you think about how this can be an impediment for some people to believe, like, why would God insist on filling the Bible with so many miracles? They're throughout the Bible, but I think it's the miracles that Jesus performed that we're told directly why he did them. He performed miracles so that people would know he was sent by God. There was this occasion where John the Baptist, I believe he was in prison, and he sent men to ask Jesus. He says, "Are you the one who was promised, the Messiah?" And Jesus actually doesn't exactly answer him. He sends back this saying. He says, "The blind receive sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear." And the implication is that those miracles were proof that he was the promised Messiah. I pulled up a verse here from, this one here from Acts chapter 2, that when the apostles were teaching to the people after Jesus had ascended to heaven, they said, this man, Jesus, was approved of God. We know he's from God because of the miracles, signs, and wonders, which God did by him in the midst of you. So just like the miracle of Israel convinces me that the Bible is true, and someone else might look at archaeology and say, hey, that proves it's true for me. The miracles that Jesus did convince people that he came from God. But the surprising thing is that so many people saw the miracles and they stopped believing. Somehow they lost their impact. And I think it's really important to note that, miracles can get your attention, but they don't necessarily change your heart. It's really the message that does that. So if you ask me the strongest reason I believe in the Bible, I might first bring up Israel because it's easy to explain to somebody. But ultimately, I believe the Bible because of the power of the message itself. It's consistent. It's real to life. It tells the truth about human nature like no other book does. And there's this beautiful story. I'll just bring up another Bible event if I can. It's about the prophet Elijah. And this prophet Elijah, he wanted to do miracles. He just wanted everybody to see that God was with him and turn back to God. He had great motives. He called a drought upon the nation for 3.5 years. He gathers everybody together and fire comes down from heaven. And for a moment, he turned the people back to God, but it didn't last. And so God actually took him to a mountain and he hid him in a cave. And there was this great wind that came up and tore through the rocks. But it says in the Bible that God wasn't in the wind. And then there was this earthquake and God wasn't in the earthquake. And then a blazing fire and God wasn't there either. And finally, there's just this little small voice, a gentle whisper. And that's where Elijah found God. So, these miracles and these proofs that we're going to go through this season, they'll hopefully capture people's attention, but it's only God's message that really can change you. So, as we go through prophecy, history, archaeology, all those external proofs, our hope is that you'll really just go beyond that you'll open the Bible and read it every day, and that you'll listen for that still small voice and let its message change your life.
All right. Well, I think that's a great place to leave it for tonight. So thanks again, Dan, for sharing all that with us. I think this is going to be a really great and informative series that answers just so many questions that are out there. And we still got 19 weeks to go, so there's a lot to look forward to.
Don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Drop a comment in the comment section and let us know what you thought. And make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Please share it and spread the word. Thanks for watching, and remember to come back soon.